Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And welcome to the Monday night edition of our program. We're live, we're national, happy to be with you. It's truly a blessing. And of course, the phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And he strikes again, El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, of course, president number 47 as well. On Friday, we left off with him talking with Putin. Putin saying, look, I know this, let's make a deal, right? And today we have Zelensky coming through in the White House saying, look, I'm not going to do this. I'm not giving up anymore. I'm not giving up any more land. I'm not doing anything. Then a little bit later he says, no. All right, look, if I'm giving up any land, that's for me to talk about with Putin. All right. So quick change in the posture there. Very interesting. And of course, in between some meetings with 7 of the world's biggest leaders, or European leaders, excuse me. Big day. Now, of course, the media looks at El Trompito and they can't help but just criticize, right? And the critique here is that he's ceding too much ground, that he's giving too much away, that he should never be shaking hands with Vladimir Putin, bringing him onto the world stage. And I think it was ABC's Martha Raddatz who made that comment over the weekend, or at least positioned it as a question. And what's interesting, at least in my opinion, what I found interesting, is to take a moment to look at what's going on and say, oh, hold on a second here. This is interesting. I spent the whole weekend, scrolling through social media when I was doing nothing. And all I saw was pictures of Obama shaking hands with Putin, pictures of Clinton shaking hands with Putin, pictures of George W. Bush shaking hands with Putin. Because, in fact, that's what world leaders do, is they try to get along. Yet when it's Trump's turn, just like if you were listening to this show, the live show on Friday night, I had people calling here, how could Trump do that? How could he receive this guy? The pomp, the circumstance, the red carpets, the handshakes, showing him so much love. And my response was, what'd you want him to do, spit in his face? Since when is that what U.S. presidents do? So it's just so interesting, the old saying, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But it seems like that's exactly what the critics of Trump want him to do. They just want him to fail. And again, I get it. I do get it. But come on, at some point you got to realize that you are you're losing out here, right? You're not reading the room. But CNN's got a report from the White House. Brian Abel bringing it from the White House. President Trump interrupting the meeting with the European leaders to call Putin in the middle of these Ukrainian peace talks, because apparently they'd made a breakthrough earlier this afternoon. Listen to this.
We can confirm about that call between President Trump and President Putin. So whether there's still a conversation happening here, it's a little bit up in the air. Here's what I can tell you is that the meeting with the European leaders, it was paused so that President Trump can go to the Oval Office and give Putin a call. That may be significant because we're also hearing that even though that the White House meeting has ended, negotiations on site continue, potentially in a different format. That is according to a spokesperson for Volodymyr Zelensky. So there is something clearly that is keeping all parties involved here at the White House talking. I do want to add another bit of reporting here. The chair of the Joint Chiefs says that they are working through potential security guarantees for Ukraine, according to a source. So that security guarantee is what the NATO Secretary General said was a breakthrough when President Trump opened the door for the potential of U.S. troops being on the ground in Ukraine for security assurances. So we will see what happens here moving forward.
And that is a big deal, right? Because just, I don't know, 3 days ago, that wasn't a deal. That wasn't part of the conversation. It wasn't on the table. Now it is. You tell me, anybody who tries to tell me that Trump's negotiation strategies are ineffective or what's happening here isn't anything short of successful, or at least trending toward success, and I have to laugh. I think it's laughable to think that this is a waste of time. This is a painstaking process. And guess what? He's the only one doing it. Lest we forget that Joe El Baboso Biden could have prevented this, or at least made the attempt to prevent it, and instead made a comment saying, look, if maybe it'll be just a small incursion, as they were building up their military on the border there, getting ready for a full-on war. And 1 year went by, and 2 years, and 3 years, and nada. Joe Biden did absolutely nothing to say, Vlad, why don't you come down to Alaska? Why don't you come down to the White House? Let me talk to you. You know, hey, Zelensky, let me holler at you real quick. Let me see what's going on here. What can I do to, squash this beef? No, none of that. Now, why didn't Joe El Baboso Biden do any of that? Is because he's un baboso? Yes, potentially. But moreover, I think he's just a weak person. And he took the opinion like, look, let them kill each other. What do I care? Because he didn't care. Same position he took at the border. The women are getting raped coming in. The kids are coming. They're working in chicken factories overnight. The girls are becoming sex slaves. Oh, yeah. What do I care? Right? That's Joe Biden. He didn't care a lot of things. Right? Joe Biden had that big White House in the middle of Washington, D.C., crime-ridden Washington, D.C., been crime-ridden for a very long time. And he didn't do anything about that either. Why? I don't care. Joe El Baboso Biden didn't care. The Democrats seem not to care about anything. Yet the grades are coming in, right? Report cards are coming due. And it seems like the citizens, they continue to support Donald Trump. People continue to be interviewed over the weekend and in the recent days. And all they have is nothing but high praise for El Trompito. And I'll say this. When people try to racialize this stuff, right? I mean, I don't think it's a secret that there's a lot of black Americans that live in Washington, D.C. But I will say, I think that has zero to do with wanting to live in peace and safety. I've never met a black person that wanted to live in a dangerous area. Anybody, black, Hispanic, white, Asian, whatever, anybody I know that ever lived in a tough neighborhood was because they didn't have other options. It's not like they said, oh, man, I want to live in, that section. Well, why? Well, because, I love the sound of gunshots at night. Right? Or my Jersey Shore references. Love the sounds of gunshots this time of year. Right? Nobody says that. Nobody likes gunshots. Nobody wants to see children being killed by crossfire. Young men being slaughtered by other young men, rivals. So where does this come from? Is it the Republicans? Is it the Republicans that say, oh, because, Democrats love crime? Yeah, that would be me. I do say that. But the reality is they're the ones that enact this stuff. That's my criticism of them for doing what they do. So where does this idea come from that somehow if you're black or Hispanic or whatever race they want to pick for the day, that we should, why is it that these, I'm going to say these racialist ideas, oh, so you're Hispanic. What do you think about illegal immigration? Why is that even a question? Are Hispanics supposed to be more sympathetic to illegal immigration? Are blacks supposed to be more sympathetic to crime in the streets? I think it's ridiculous. It's asinine to think that that's even a thing. Because in my opinion, it's not based on my own anecdotal evidence in life. That is a construct of the left within the media, the left within academia, the left within government, that say stuff without knowing stuff, if that makes any sense at all. Anyway, amigos, I want to continue this conversation straight ahead, but I have to take a quick pause here. And we are going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, and inching closer to peace between Zelensky and Putin. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Last week, you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept, you know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
So that, again, is President Trump, El Trompito, discussing some of his thoughts on this peace process, circumventing a ceasefire and going straight to a lasting peace agreement. I want to get some reaction to that, as well as some analysis on the events of today from Jacob Olidort, director of the Center for American Security at the America First Policy Institute. Jacob, welcome.
Great to be with you, Rich. Thank you.
You bet. So I want to get your thoughts on this. You know, perhaps I'm a fan of President Trump's, but I feel like nobody else is doing it, right? Joe Biden had an opportunity to do it. He did nothing. Harris did nothing. Nobody's really done anything except for Trump, and he's got a pretty good track record at squashing these beefs, ending these wars, and creating lasting peace, not to mention what he did in Trump 1.0 with the Abraham Accords. So to me, it seems like we're on to something. Your thoughts?
No, I think that's exactly right. Look, Joe Biden didn't even talk to Putin. I mean, he said, like, he would not do that, and that, of course, is one of his big flaws. I think, to me, you know, the amazing part of this is not just what's happening right now, but it's the context. I mean, the fact that these talks are happening right after this historic agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, right after the military isolation of Iran, and everything else that the president's been doing, the Syria, new chapter there. I think Putin is sort of seeing where the political winds are turning. And I think it's also important to note exactly how the president did this. Obviously, the many talks with Zelensky, now the summit with Putin, and then bringing all these European leaders together, I think, to remind them this is in their backyard, that it's not just, you know, the United States, you know, acting directly in this conflict, but really trying to mediate peace on an entire continent. And I think, you know, I think it's incredible. We're going to see peace really soon happen there.
Jacob, I want to get your thoughts on some of the critique, right? There's been a lot of critique, at least that I've heard over the weekend. I'm not going to play the audio for you to not cut into your time, but Martha Raddatz, ABC News, was interviewing Secretary Rubio and indicating that, you know, some people are displeased and dissatisfied with the idea that President Trump invited Vladimir Putin, who is a war criminal and all sorts of things, onto U.S. soil. I thought, why not? We're trying to make peace. But what's your reaction to that critique?
Well, look, there's a lot of precedent for this. Obviously, Winston Churchill meeting with Stalin, he's no great saint there. And so obviously Churchill and Mao and others. And so I think, to make peace happen, you have to face both sides. And obviously one of those sides, being kind of the person he is, Putin. But I think, you really can't have peace until you bring all the sides together. And I think that's what the president's doing here. I think he's not, doing anything untoward. I mean, it's kind of like, as you mentioned, in his first term, meeting with Kim Jong-un there, it wasn't that he was trying to legitimize him or act in any favorable way. It was just that to make peace happen, to make change possible, the first step is engagement. And then after that, you kind of see where the sides are, listen to what their views are, and then you can move forward from there.
Jacob, President Trump is a pretty skilled negotiator from my estimation. And I think he takes a different approach than others do, because I think he's playing a different game. The stakes are different. He has different goals in mind. And I think that's the reason why he's often misunderstood by the media and those that are quote unquote experts in foreign policy, because I think he believes in peace through strength, but really, really, really doesn't want to go to war, which was always an option that I think a lot of American presidents in the past, both Democrat and Republican, were always very open to, because there was an economic upside to that. Not that that was what drove their decisions, but that was a thing. Whereas President Trump looks for a different economic upside while maintaining peace. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Look, and you heard it from the president himself in that audio clip earlier. He just wants to stop the killing. It's a very foundational, very basic human instinct, and it's a very noble one as well. I think it's just there's war happening. We just need to stop it, stop the killing. It's senseless, and it needs to end. And I think that, as you said, there's no ulterior motives. There's no other plan. It's just peace for peace's own sake. I've heard critiques now about whether or not the president should win the Nobel Peace Prize. I think, of course, yes, he should. Sure. But I think, but most importantly as well, you have the president's actions and strong record on this from his first term. As you said, the historic peace agreement in the Middle East, and now just in the last 7 months, what we've witnessed around the world, it's just breathtaking and so important that I think we really need to stop and really appreciate how important all these steps are.
Yeah, I agree with that. And amigos, let me just remind you, we're on with Jacob Olidort. He's director of the Center for American Security at the America First Policy Institute. Of course, that's the think tank of the Make America Great Again, America First movement. And Jacob, when we come back from the pause, I want to continue briefly on this topic, getting your thoughts on what the mechanics of the deal moving forward might likely look like, from your estimation, as well as some of your thoughts on the federalization of D.C. to make it safer. Again, that's another one where I think the media miscalculated. So your thoughts on that when we return. Plus, your calls are coming up, amigos. Everybody, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337 is the telephone number. We'll be taking your calls after we wrap up our interview with Jacob Olidort, director of the Center for American Security at AFPI, the America First Policy Institute. I'm Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
That, of course, President Trump again earlier today in the White House with Fox News' Peter Doocy and, of course, President Zelensky. He wants to stop the killing, and I want to know what is the plan moving forward. We're joined by Jacob Olidort. He's the director of the Center for American Security at the America First Policy Institute. And Jacob, talk to me about what you think the mechanics of this peace deal are going to look like. What is it that Trump is doing besides, being the adult in the room, as Mark Rudy called him, daddy, right? And besides that, what is the United States bringing to the table or offering each of these guys?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's look, this is probably the most complex war of our lifetime, and it's one that was started under Joe Biden's watch, but it's also the largest land war in Europe, almost a century. And so there are lots of moving parts here, lots of implications for it, lots of states and different nations with stakes in the outcome. But obviously the president has not revealed all that much, which I think is exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of complicated pieces to all of this. I think part of it will have to do, with Zelensky figuring out what's the political message, to send to his people to tell them, look, this is a victory for us. We can live with this. Let's move forward. It's also obviously getting Putin to the right place, which, of course, the president has a number of arrows still in his quiver that he hasn't used. Obviously, if it gets to that point, and he needs to use them. So I think there are, but, obviously people are focused on what does the security of Ukraine look like. Nobody's talked about the territory as well. That's another kind of dynamic part of this. And then I think, as you mentioned at the top, it's not really a ceasefire so much as getting to peace and a full stop to all of the killing, which, of course, is much more ambitious, but as the president said, reasonably possible in light of these talks.
Jacob, do you think, you just mentioned it, and I guess a follow-up to what you said, because I think you're right. Zelensky needs a win, and so does Putin. Right? Putin doesn't want to look weak, and I think to some degree, some people are saying, come on, you're the biggest country on the planet. You couldn't take out this little country, Ukraine, and people are looking at him sideways. Then you've got Zelensky, who, looks like a hero to a lot of people because he's this little country, but they have an incredible heart. But he also needs a win for his people. He doesn't want to just say, all right, look, we're giving up the Donbass, we're giving up Crimea, we're giving up everything they've already taken, and we're just going to call it a day. That doesn't seem like a win. So what constitutes a win? And again, this is conjecture here, but in my opinion, it has to be something where he says, look, this isn't going to happen again because now there's a tripwire, and if these guys do this again, we're back in, NATO's in, or the United States is in, or somehow, we're protected, or they're giving us nukes again, or whatever it is. And I don't think that's even on the table, and nor will it probably ever be. But my point is, they each need a win. What do you think the win is for Zelensky?
Well, I think Zelensky has a very easy message to convey to his people. Look, I have defended Ukraine's sovereignty and security, and we've paid a heavy price with the sacrifices we've made. We've also impressed the world with our bravery and incredible military innovation. And look, the reality is we're not giving up our sovereignty and who we are as Ukrainians. Now, there might be Russians here and there, but you know what? International law determines the status of this area, whether it is whose control it actually is in terms of the international law piece of it. And then plus, we've got this great momentum and with our European colleagues and with the United States at the forefront. And we have, and he could say, I'm the leader who brought about a definitive end to Putin's temptations on Ukraine. I think he can stand on solid ground there. And then for Putin, I think he just needs some situation, look, where he's in a corner right now, and he really has no economic options. I mean, almost 50% of the economy is oriented towards military production, tanks, and things that are useless to everyday life. He doesn't want to turn into another Iran. And so I think he needs some sort of saving face. I think there he can, again, use the counter and say, look, we have, been at the table. We are now looking at the future, not at the present of this war. We want to find a better future for Russia. I think that would be in the best interest, much like the president speaking with Kim Jong-un. Look, you want a better future for your people as a leader of North Korea. Well, let's focus on that. I think if he gets to that conversation and with Putin accepting some compromises to get there, I think that would be obviously easier said than done, but I think a path forward here.
You know, Jacob Olidort, it wasn't that long ago that people said that if President Trump gets elected, we're going to be at war with North Korea. And it wasn't that long ago that he shook hands with the dictator, Kim Jong-un, and everybody criticized him for that. Yet, I can't remember the last time one of their rockets came our way. Can you?
Right. No, I think so. In fact, when he did that, people forget the amount of, it wasn't a final signing of the peace treaty, but they returned the remains of many of our fallen in Korea. They didn't fire a single rocket for over a year after that. And so there was actually peace on the continent and peace between us. And I think it was a tremendous, and I think it's a similar situation where Putin has kind of crossed a threshold, and he's been doing this, this whole war. And I think it's kind of the unthinkable that, look, we're going to resolve this. We're going to put an end to all of this. And, as you said, the critics just can't believe it. But that's who the president is. And, he's bold and he wants the solution to end the killing. And that's the important part.
It's a novel idea, getting along with everybody.
Exactly.
The nerve. Jacob,
Right.
I want you to give me a couple of minutes just quickly on your thoughts on Washington, D.C. and the success that the president has had in using the home rule law.
Yes. Well, look, obviously it's no secret that D.C. has fallen into disrepair. I'm actually, a child of New York City, so I remember the Dinkins years just after that. And so
me too.
These great cities, exactly. These great cities, they're very fragile. And I think what President Trump, what I believe he's trying to accomplish is make it safe, make it prosperous, make it a great home for the people who live there, and make it, this is the nation's capital. We deserve much better. And so I think, you had those meetings in the beginning with the mayor of D.C., but, ultimately, in the last couple of years, it's really become, a danger zone. It's really, there are areas, where it's not safe to walk around at night, and I think, that is really within his constitutional right, there are certain aspects of law enforcement, of the military and otherwise, that are at the president's disposal in emergency situations, which obviously this meets that threshold. And, I believe, he's just trying to get it back on track, get it back to being a respectable, welcoming place that our nation's capital should be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Now, Brooklyn, Manhattan, what borough are you from?
Right. Actually, so a bit of Queens, but then Manhattan
I knew it.
as well. So,
I knew it was Queens. Right. I could hear the Shea Stadium in the background.
There you go. Exactly right. Right.
Jacob Olidort, thanks, brother. Good talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
And I appreciate your time. Let everybody know how they could find you at AFPI.
Absolutely. JOLIDORT. J Olidort is my X account. And then AFPI is AmericaFirstPolicy.com. And our website has all of our papers and op-eds and other materials you can find there.
Outstanding. Keep up the great work, and Godspeed, my friend.
Thank you. You as well.
You bet. Amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions to El Trompito and Zelensky in the White House today. What is the next move forward? I want to hear from you guys. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Jeff Zeleny, I want you and our viewers to listen to something that President Trump didn't intend to be public, but his mic was hot. This was as he and the other European leaders were sitting down to the meeting, and he was talking about Vladimir Putin and what Trump believes Putin will do for him personally.
I think he wants to make a deal for me. You understand? I think as crazy as it sounds.
A couple key words in there are for me. I think he wants to make a deal for me. I mean, it's not altogether surprising that President Trump thinks this. Whenever there's a hot mic moment, we're always slightly more interested than when it's something that he would have just said. It's not actually all that dissimilar from things he said throughout the campaign. But what's different about it now is the whole comment there, wants to make a deal for me, that was at the root of President Trump's entire argument that I can end this on day one. That his relationship with President Putin was so strong from that first term. They were stablemates, as he once said on 60 Minutes, of which there was no evidence of. But this is just kind of the latest version of it. There's been zero evidence that President Putin is using his relationship with Donald Trump to do anything for Trump, to end it for Trump. So I think it was just a window into President Trump's mindset.
So that, again, is CNN. And I got to tell you, these guys are reaching if I've ever seen a reach. They play you the audio of Trump. I don't hear him say for me. But even if he did, what would that mean? That this is personal? He's making a deal. He's being leader of the free world. I think they're absolutely ridiculous here. And I don't think President Trump has made the assertion that there would be no war or the war would end very quickly had he been in office, or wouldn't have began at all if he were in office. That has to do with his position on understanding things. You don't make certain moves when the boss is around. Biden never assumed the role of being the boss. So they were like, oh, this guy's out to lunch. Open crib. And everybody was having a party. Now, that's all that was. And the way CNN spins things, even in a good thing like this, even a thing where we're here, making a deal for peace. Interesting. Anyway, I've got several people texting me a bunch of different things that we are there, that we are very close, that the deal is being hammered out as we speak. That's not something I can confirm because I'm trying to get more info, but looks like we're headed in the right direction, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have peace sooner rather than later. But Jeff Zeleny and CNN, oh my goodness. Anyway, a couple other things I want to get into here because, there's a little bit other news items out there. You got Trump and Zelensky. We did that one. Good conversations. Texas Democrats are returning home. They returned home last week, obviously, but now they're back. They're done. I don't think they're walking out anymore. It's over. I think their drama is officially over because, it was a big show, but I think for naught. I think all the redistricting will be done. Now the question is, will Gavin Newsom go ahead and unilaterally do what he wants to do in California, which I think the answer to that is yes. And how it plays out for him, I don't know. In my Australian accent, I'll say, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, let me see. What else do we got here? New migrant facility. We can get to that later. What's this? You know what? This is where I pause because if I start something here, I won't have enough time for it. And if I don't want to leave you halfway. So I'll take a pause right here and I'll get to your calls. I promise you in the next segment. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And again, just to reiterate a little bit of what's going on here, Zelensky, after the meeting with the European leaders and President Trump's phone call to Vladimir Putin, he has agreed to meet with Putin. When and where, I don't have all of that stuff, but that's the latest on the phone call. Very good talks. Very good talks. Everybody seems happy. I'm curiosity is killing this cat right here. I want to know what everybody's getting out of the deal. Why? Because I'm a cynic, and I think President Trump, he wants no more people to be dead. I believe that, and he likes to, to be the guy that brings about the peace. But these other two, they're happy to be killing each other, and it's my belief that something's got to make sense for them, and I don't know what that something is. To me, the obvious is too obvious. I feel like there's more to it, and I can't wait to figure it out. But as I know it, you'll know it. Anyway, let me get to the phones here. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDES. Let's go to Boise, Idaho, streaming the show. It's KBFI Country. Paul, go for it, my man.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Just a personal thing growing up. We lived my age. We lived through START, SALT, and another buzzword at the time was peace through strength, trust but verify.
Oh yeah, the Reagan mantra.
And I see those just as important today as they were 40 some odd years ago. And the architect then, of course, we all know was Ronald Reagan, and the people that he had working for him. Now I see the same type of people working for Trump. And if there is somebody that deserves the accolades and to wear the laurel, I think it's Donald Trump. I have no doubt in my mind. I've watched leaders come and go, and if he could stand another 10 years, I would vote for him for that 10 years. That's the way I feel about the guy.
So you're saying Trump 2028, Trump 2032. You're going to drive the left mad with those kinds of numbers. Paul, but I hear what you're saying. And listen, I tend to agree with you based on my understanding of history. I remember the impact as a very small kid of, in my own house. We didn't care about politics, but my mother loved Reagan. And I remember that. I remember it was a big deal back then. Things changed. You can't help but crack open a history book and remember Carter talking about, well, we'll see what happens with respect to hostages, and Reagan getting elected and hostages coming home. And to me, that's a stark difference, but yet quite a similarity to the situation you have here. You've got everybody at war. You've got October 7th. You've got Russia, Ukraine, part 3, if you will. And all of this crazy that's going on because of the out to lunch absenteeism, fecklessness of Joe El Baboso Biden and Kamala Harris. So I'm with you. I think you're spot on there, Paul. Thank you for the call, my brother. I appreciate it. Hope you had a good weekend, by the way. And amigos, we have lots more to discuss. For some of you, this is the end of the road. For others, you'll be joining us a little bit more in a couple of minutes. Either way, I want to encourage you to listen to every interview that we do on the program. It's always a good time for me to chat with these people and try and bring you the most up-to-date stuff that we've got going on. Being I think we're the largest live late-night show by affiliates in the country. So we try to keep everybody informed. And a big part of that is you guys calling in with your thoughts, opinions, and information, helping me stay informed as well. So 833-482-5337 is the phone number. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez, and I'll be right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy Monday to you. It's a blessing to be here, and I hope you'll join us on our late night national town hall conversation. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And I want to get into a number of things right now. Of course, we're going to be talking about the peace conversations, the peace deal, the peace talks with El Trompito, President Trump, and President Volodymyr Zelensky from the Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin from Russia. And we'll get into that all throughout the hour. But right now, I want to bring your attention to another big headline that came out. Dominion voting systems, right? This is a settlement that was announced with Newsmax. Now, you know, you've seen me on Newsmax. I'm on Newsmax pretty much every week. And I think this is a good thing. You know, part of what they did when they settled with Fox News, they got like $1 billion or something, or $817 million, some crazy number like that. And I thought, that's great. You know, it's a great way to steal somebody's money and, you know, transfer it to others, right? And this is, you know, it's that type of lawfare that all the illicit regimes, all the commies, that's what they did, right? That eventually they'd put you in a fake, phony fraud type of tribunal, say that you did something wrong, and you know, you were fined, and they were, you know, they would confiscate your property and all of that, and it would become, you know, property of the state. And you know, here it's not the state that's doing the suing, but still trying to, you know, if this is an enemy of yours, if you don't like that Newsmax is giving the truth and giving it with a dose of healthy center-right commentary, then you may be so inclined to see them lose more money and hopefully impact their operations to the detriment of the business, and which is what I think a lot of these punitive damages are for. But the legal team for Newsmax prevailed here, doing an excellent job settling, according to the New York Times, $67 million only, when they were asking for something like $1 billion or some countless numbers of billions. So kudos to the Newsmax team for getting this in at $67 million, as opposed to what Fox ended up paying, which was over $800 million. So, and if you look at this headline here, New York Times, just to give you a little something here, because I'm looking at this and I think even the hard news on the New York Times is flawed. It says here, Newsmax will pay $67 million to settle Dominion defamation lawsuit. That's all factual, I guess, right? Presuming that number is accurate. But then there's the subhead, and it says Dominion Voting Systems sued the right-wing cable channel for broadcasting false claims that the voting machine company had rigged votes in the 2020 presidential election. Now, that's actually not true. Dominion didn't sue them for broadcasting false claims. It says it right there in the headline. Dominion sued them for defamation. And Dominion wasn't able to prove defamation. And to put an end to all the litigation, they opted to settle, which made sense for all parties, which is why they got off, you know, this easy, $67 million versus the $1 billion or $1.5 billion or whatever that crazy number was. But spreading false claims is something that's A, subjective, and B, it's a news channel that does opinion commentary. So who is anybody to say what's true and what's not true, and that it's being spread by Newsmax? They had some guests on. Just imagine I go on Newsmax. Let's just say I go on Newsmax and I say, I think the 2020 election was problematic. I think that there was problems in Wisconsin. I think there were problems in Pennsylvania. I think there was problems in a number of states with how they were allowed to count votes, on how they were allowed to accept votes, like Pennsylvania, where they said, oh, election day is whatever, the 5th. We'll keep taking ballots the 6th, the 7th, the 8th. We're not even going to, it doesn't matter when they're time stamped. Doesn't matter. We'll just keep taking them. Election night became election week. Why? They just wanted more ballots. I know where I come from. If something is due a certain day and I don't get it by that day, I either get charged a late fee or they don't take it. That's how real life works. And it did work like that up until this election, where all the rules were magically changed. And the rules weren't changed by the legislature of the state of Pennsylvania. No, they were changed by a lawsuit brought by Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Mark Elias, who made the lawsuit, took it to the Supreme Court in the state. They settled it in the Supreme Court, and that was it. The people who were represented by the legislature never had an opportunity to determine what was going on here, right? They just said, no, everybody can do absentee voting now. Everybody can do it. So, since then, I think there's been some progress saying, look, they can't do that. That was not, that wasn't the right way to handle that. It was extra constitutional is the word we'll go with. But my point in this, because I'm going off on a tangent here, my point in all of this is that the New York Times just couldn't just report the straight news here and just say that, Dominion Voting Systems sued the conservative cable channel for broadcasting what they claimed was defamation and were unable to prove in court. That's a fact. That's a fact that has no spin. Said false claims, rigged votes 2020. That's not actually that's not what they sued them for. So the whole thing's factually inaccurate, in my opinion. But kudos to Chris Friday and Newsmax and everybody in the Newsmax familia. That's that. Now, there was another nice bit of news that I wanted to get into. Listen to this. Speaking of vote rigging, right? These are all Democrats, by the way. Michigan city councilmen, there's 6 city councilmen. 3 of them. No, I'm sorry. Maybe there's 12. 3 of the 6. I think that's it. So 50% of them are currently under investigation for ballot stuffing in the city called Hamtramck. I think I'm saying that right. Hamtramck. You could figure it out. Google the spelling. Hamtramck, Michigan. And they've been caught stuffing ballots with election absentee ballots days before a primary. This news broke over the weekend. Michigan city councilman was caught on camera stuffing ballot boxes with apparent absentee ballots just days before he won his own re-election bid in a local primary. The Hamtramck city council member, Abu Musa, was seen in the passenger seat of a car on August 1st, handing stacks of paper to the car's driver, then dumped them into a nearby ballot box. Look at that. Since then, several others were arrested doing the same thing. Caught on camera doing the same thing. 286 votes were cast on Election Day. 843 votes cast by absentee ballot. Now, I don't think you got to be a genius to know. Take a big whiff. Something smells really fishy about this. When you've got the majority of people voting in a small municipal election absentee, this is why we don't do absentee voting, right? This is why we don't do mail-in votes. We've known forever. We learned from Europe. The easiest way to cheat in an election is with mail-in ballots. So what did we do in 2020? In the name of COVID, we went with mail-in ballots everywhere. And this is why people are so skeptical about that election. Because mail-in ballots are a recipe for fraud. Anyway, we're talking about that. Then we've got some updates on what's going on with the latest memorandum from President Trump. This one is requiring colleges to reveal their admissions data to prove that they're not using affirmative action anymore. And again, this is the Supreme Court that decided affirmative action was racism in reverse. So, no bueno. And we'll find out how that's going to play out when our guest joins us, because this is interesting, right? When you force the colleges to say, hey, look, we know we told you to play by the rules, but we want to know, are you really playing by the rules? Like, what would happen? What would happen if colleges all across America were actually treating kids that go there and say, oh, I believe in Jesus, and I happen to like Trump? Imagine that. Conservatives and Christians allowed on college campuses. Nah, I don't believe it yet. Anyway, keep it locked right here. We're coming back. More conversation straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Trump administration is requiring colleges and universities to prove they don't consider race in their admissions. The Department of Education saying schools will have to report data on applicants and students' race and sex, as well as academic achievements such as standardized test scores and GPAs. The move comes 2 years after a Supreme Court decision mostly barred schools from factoring race into their admissions decisions. President Trump says there are concerns schools aren't following that. Education Secretary Linda McMahon saying the move will ensure that meritocracy and excellence once again characterize American higher education.
I 100% agree that excellence and meritocracy should be part of admissions for our top colleges. However, I want to push back on this idea that grades and the SAT score are the sole measures of merit.
Natasha Wariku has researched higher education and says schools consider non-academic factors too, and believes this move will disadvantage Black and Hispanic students.
So that's the latest from the administration holding higher education accountable. And I think it's about time we see this type of thing because we've seen them running amok, doing whatever they want to do. And I want to get to the bottom of this from one of our favorites here. Sarah Parshall Perry is with us this evening. She's Vice President and Legal Fellow at Defending Education, as well as former Senior Counsel to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Education. Sarah Parshall Perry, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me, Rich.
You bet. So talk to me, what's this new memorandum, and do you think that the Harvards and the Columbias and the rest of the Ivies out there are going to play ball?
Well, let's hope they do, because what we've discovered in our research at Defending Education is more than 245 universities and colleges or schools of study within universities and colleges are still explicitly using race-based DEI programs in their admissions and their selections for certain benefits. That is a violation not only of federal civil rights law, it's a violation of the Constitution, as the Supreme Court made very clear to us in the Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard and UNC pair of cases from 2023. In fact, when he was writing for the majority in that opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts said that the only way to eliminate race discrimination is to eliminate all of it. And that's precisely what the Department of Education is seeking to do. Because of these diversity and race essentialist programs being rebranded, sent underground, and given new names, the Department of Education wants to make sure that it itself is in compliance with what the Supreme Court has said. And so what it has proposed is a modification of its current reporting system. And that's a system called the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, or IPEDS. Now, IPEDS tracks a lot of statistics, but all of the statistics are aggregated, right? So these are how many individuals of a certain age range did you accept, how many women, how many men, how many individuals of certain races. What they're proposing to do is to drill down a little bit and to recognize that a lot of these schools, and especially so in the Ivies, who seem to be really committed to the entrenchment of discrimination in higher education, that they have to provide an explanation for the individuals who are accepted and provide comparators with all the other groups. So in other words, if you accept, for example, 90% of white applicants, but only 10% of black applicants, and both have the same test scores, that is, on its face, race discrimination, even if the roles were reversed. Again, race discrimination. Sex discrimination. If, for example, you accept 90% of women, but only 10% of men, that's sex discrimination. They want to make sure that they are not going to violate federal law or encourage universities to violate federal law. And really what they're trying to do, Rich, is to very simply return us to the promises of the colorblind equal protection that we were guaranteed after the passage of the 14th Amendment and again in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. It's very commonsensical and, quite frankly, long overdue.
Yeah, you know, Sarah Parshall Perry, I look at this and I think a lot of this came about because it got crazy. You know, for years, they were, trying to make up for what they felt was an injustice. We don't have enough of these, so let's recruit more of those and look the other way. But it got to the point, and not that that was okay, but I understood, for those who sympathized. But now you get to a point where you've got students from Asia, Indian students, Korean students, other Asians, that were applying for certain things, like the stuff you saw in Virginia a couple of years ago, and they were being, set aside, saying you're not minority enough, right? You're not brown enough for other ones, and I just thought to myself, I don't want to go to a school where they're like, well, we're letting you in because you're this, not because you're good. I think that's a problem that we shouldn't turn a blind eye to.
Bingo. And I've got to tell you, Rich, as somebody who's spent decades in civil rights law, who started out in Title VII employment discrimination cases representing individuals who have been discriminated against in front of EEOC tribunals, and now all the way up to the work that I do in Washington, making sure that that type of discrimination doesn't happen in higher education or within government-funded programs. What we saw after the Civil Rights Movement in 1964, where the original progenitors of the Civil Rights Movement simply just wanted the same stake in the outcome that everybody else had, equality of opportunity. Let us do the exact same things everybody else can do. Perfectly commonsensical, constitutional, well received by the public. We had some holdouts, obviously, in the South. But what's happened since then, Rich, is we've seen almost a regressive liberalism, where now we have flipped the narrative of equality on its head. And now we're more concerned with what's called equity. Well, equity is not the same thing as equality. Equity is the same outcome. Equality is the same starting point. And that's what we want for every American. Everyone gets the same bite at the apple, the same chance to succeed. And that's part of the beauty of living in a pluralistic nation.
Amen to that. Folks, we're on with Sarah Parshall Perry. She's Vice President and Legal Fellow at Defending Education, former Senior Counsel to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Education. And when we come back, we'll continue this conversation as well as add a couple of other topics to the conversation mix. And, of course, after that, your phone calls and more are coming up. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez coming right back with Sarah Parshall Perry.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez. We continue our late night national town hall conversation with Sarah Parshall Perry. Sarah Parshall Perry is Vice President and Legal Fellow at Defending Education. She was the Senior Counsel to the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the United States Department of Education. And Sarah Parshall Perry, there's a few things I want to ask you about here. And I guess this is a genuine question, but maybe creative, based on the news of the day. But there's been all this talk about D.C. being federalized. And I'm wondering if for no other reason but for defending a parent's right to send their child to school in a peaceful place, that the president should have done this for violating these children's civil rights, under color of law or any other thing that they're doing by allowing all this crime to occur. Am I onto something, or is it just wishful thinking?
I got to tell you, Rich, you really are. And here's the thing that we're not hearing a lot of grown-ups in the room talk about. D.C. is a federal territory. It is organized under the powers of Congress as specifically dictated in the Constitution itself. So there really hasn't been any federal takeover of D.C. This is the simple exercise of necessary federal law enforcement because the crime in D.C., and I am just in the shadow of D.C. I live in Arlington. I work in D.C. This is my home, because it has gotten so aggressive over the past few years for failure of Muriel Bowser's policies in addressing law enforcement, crime, homelessness, gun possession, and the like within the district. So this is simply the grown-ups coming into the room and saying, listen, we really have to do something to return this district to its previous peaceful state when we're seeing 3-year-old babies who are being shot through drive-by shootings. This is not the District of Columbia that I know and love so well, the seat of power and authority for the entire country where decisions of massive consequence are made. This is something that not only is benefiting the individuals who work in the city, but also, and more importantly, the individuals who live in the city, the individuals who come and go from their jobs, from their homes, from their schools, on the school buses, to their stores, their grocery stores, picking up their prescriptions around the corner. These are individuals who have the legal and constitutional right to live in an environment that is free of violence. And if that requires federal law enforcement power to make it so, then so be it.
Yeah. And listen, earlier I made some comments, and they were rooted in my passion for the work you do, school choice. For years, it was, school choice I always found was that political issue, which it's not really a political issue, but it is, where, you would go to a Hispanic community or a black community, and you had to tell people about school choice and about parents' rights. But once they found out about it, they're like, yeah, well, just because I'm black or Hispanic doesn't mean that my kid doesn't get to go to a good school too. Like, why do you get to go to good schools? And, and that's been an issue forever. And I feel like they do the same thing with crime now. I mean they, the media, they, the left. It seems like it's almost like, oh my gosh, why would you agree with making it safe? I want you to listen to this really short clip I have of parents and residents in D.C. Giving their reaction to the federal takeover.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, you want to feel safe when you're out and about, especially females.
It's a good thing because it actually reinforces the fact that America is secure, safe, stable.
Elliot Reed says he supports the federal involvement.
As a moderate, as a centrist, I think something needs to be done. I have 3 kids. I'm about to start teaching next week. I want it to be safe.
He wants it to be safe. So do I, Sarah Parshall Perry. Why is it, and maybe you don't have the answer to that, but it perplexes me. Why is it that there is a discussion in the body politic that some races, some neighborhoods, certain ethnic groups, they don't prefer peace? I think everybody prefers peace, no?
No, I would absolutely agree with you. And here's the thing, and it really is analogous to what we were talking about with educational freedom before, because we should not be defined by our zip codes. In other words, our zip codes should not determine whether or not we are safe or whether or not we are unsafe. Our zip code should not decide if we are going to a good school or we are going to a substandard school. The entire population, the pluralistic society in which we live, is designed to benefit all Americans equally. And that is why I think it's such an encouragement for individuals who are in the district right now to see finally that they've got backing from the federal government, because after years of failed Democratic policies within the district, we are not seeing better outcomes for student achievement learning rates or safety or crime. We are seeing the exact opposite. So my kudos to the administration to finally say, listen, this is where we all live and work. We love the district. We want to care for its people. And when the state or the district is not taking care of its own people, there is a constitutional principle at work. It's called the principle of parens patriae, which is Latin for in the state of or in the shoes of a parent. In other words, the government can come in and say, you are not being protected by your own governor, your own mayor, your own council person. We're going to come in and we're going to exercise the authority we have to make life better for everyone. And I think it's a principle all of us can get behind.
I love that. I love that. It's kind of like what the gentleman from the European Union said, Mark Rutte, when he said it took daddy to get involved, right? He called Trump daddy, which is very funny. That's what that reminds me of. Sarah Parshall Perry, great conversation as always. For people that are listening and saying, this woman is brilliant, I want to know more about her, and I want to learn more about how I can help her organization, where do you send them?
Well, I would have them check out our website at defendinged.org, or you can follow me on X, where I'm very active and usually ranting about the latest Supreme Court or appellate court decision, at Sarah P. Perry.
And just to remind everybody, tell everybody, very briefly what you do at Defending Education.
Our goal is a high-quality, value-neutral education for every American school kid. We love school choice. We promote school choice, but we also recognize the reality of public education. I'm a product of public education. My 3 children are a product as well. 2 of my children have special needs. They needed those protections. So we want public education as good as possible for every American kid.
Amen to that. Sarah Parshall Perry. Check her out on X. Check out their website, Defending Education, Parents Defending Education. Sarah, you are brilliant as always, a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much, Rich.
You bet. And amigos, we continue with you all, the American people, your calls, your thoughts, your opinions. Plus, I got a couple of more things I want to share a couple of thoughts I want to share on El Trumpito and his big day today with Volodymyr Zelensky. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America, and you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
With new allegations of election fraud at Hamtramck, earlier this week, 2 city councilmen were arraigned on charges related to the 2023 election. Today, we're learning about a new investigation into the primary that just happened last week. Gino Vici joins us from Hamtramck City Hall with more on these latest allegations.
And sources inside the city tell us this most recent instance of potential election fraud involves this ballot box right in front of City Hall, and it was all caught on camera. And what I'm about to show you is also under investigation with the Michigan State Police.
The hits keep coming in the city of Hamtramck. On Tuesday, Mutasin Sadman and Mohammed Hassan, 2 city councilmen, were arraigned on election fraud charges. And CBS Detroit has now learned about a brand new investigation into stuffing the ballot boxes right in front of City Hall. CBS Detroit also filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the city clerk for surveillance camera footage pointed directly at ballot boxes in the days leading up to the August 5th election. And what we found was concerning. Several individuals dropping off handful of ballots. For example, this black Nissan Maxima made multiple trips to the ballot box in front of City Hall in the days leading up to Election Day. And at each trip to the ballot box, handfuls of ballots were stuffed in the box. Also, take a look at the driver of this red-colored Tesla. Also made several stops, each time dropping off multiple ballots at the location in front of City Hall. And the last time, the person inside the vehicle had a bag full of ballots, something the city says is extremely concerning.
Again, that's just I want to rehash a little bit of what happened, what we were talking about earlier with these councilmen from Hamtramck. I guess it's pronounced Tremec. I said Hamtramck because there's no I. It's just Hamtramck. Anyway, you could tell I'm not a Michigander. But shout out to everybody in Michigan. And I'm going to get to your calls right now. But I just found this very interesting, right? These two councilmen, Muhsin Sadman and Mohammed Hassan, they've been charged with election fraud, forgery, and other, related offenses. Then you've got another council member, Abu Masa, who's at the center of an investigation concerning whether he actually lives in Hamtramck or not. Then you also have some lawsuits that involve Mr. Hassan and Mr. Sadman. And things aren't looking good for the guys in good old Hamtramck, as I call it, Hamtramck, Michigan. So I don't know. What do you guys think of this? Is this did they just figure out how to do this? Did they just discover ballot stuffing? Was ballot stuffing a thing for the last 100 years, but we didn't do it in 2020, and we started it again in 2021 and into 2025? I want to get your thoughts on this. Let's see. Where do we go? We're going to go with Dorian is in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, KDKA country. Dorian, go right ahead.
I think I've been listening to KDK most of my adult life. I'm an old guy. I was at Woodstock, actually.
Wow.
But I'm sure if Jim Bohannon were alive today, he would have been proud to hear you on the radio today. And I'm glad I was tuned into KDK, even though I listened to the Pirates game earlier tonight. We won. We beat Toronto. Paul
right.
did well, but
thank you.
I want you to live forever. I just enjoy this moment. Thank you for taking my call.
Brother, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Really kind words. I appreciate it. And, when Jimbo handed over the reins of this legendary program to me in October of 22, it was a really cool moment for me, as a young guy. I was just like, wow, Jimbo Hannon, he was saying all these nice things about me. And I think he said, you've got a track record. You've got the goods in that, baritone Jimbo Hannon voice. And I was like, man, thanks. Nothing like a shot in the arm from a legend to get you going. Dorian, I appreciate your kind words. God bless you, brother. Shout out to everybody in KDKA, America's oldest radio station. And we continue. Where do we go? All the way to the other side, further south, Dothan, Alabama, WDBT. JW, go right ahead, brother.
¿Cómo está, my freedom-loving
Hi,
northern
estamos bien, brother.
Freedom-loving southern brother way down south, Alabama.
I love it. I love Alabama because you guys are right next to Florida, and I love Florida.
That's right. I do, too, man. I tell you. Listen, I just want to tell you I'm sitting here reflecting back on things, celebrating my 65th birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, man. But listen, I was thinking about things going on with Donald Trump and President Trump and all, and I'm celebrating 65 years in the free states of America under the leadership of Donald J. Trump. Woo, it don't get any better.
It's a great time to be alive, right? My brother, happy. Go ahead.
Everything that Donald Trump says, they go against. If he says yes, they say no. If he says it's great, they say it's bad. I wished he would just come out and say, I think breathing is the best thing ever. Everybody should breathe. Maybe they would just go the other way with that. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. JW, I don't know if you heard him earlier say, I think the killing is bad. We've got to stop the killing. They're killing millions and millions of people. And somehow they criticize them for that, too. So, listen, I think you're onto something there. JW, Dothan, Alabama, WDBT. Thanks for your kind words. Thanks for the call. Shout out to you and everybody in WDBT land. And let me see. What do I do? You know what we do? We go to Doug. He's in Clifton, Virginia. WMAL. Doug, go right ahead, sir. Open phones across America.
Hey, Rich, you were asking what motivates Zelensky and Putin to actually come together with a deal. So I think the only deal that's going to occur is one that makes nobody completely happy, but everybody can claim victory. Zelensky's going to have to realize he's not getting all the land back. but he'll be able to say to his people, I stopped the war, saved lives, and preserved the Ukrainian Republic. Putin is going to say, at least I couldn't take Ukraine, but I was able to hold on to land, advance the cause of the former greatness of the Soviet Union, say he can retire as a hero, perhaps keep any of his adversaries from assassinating him. Trump will be able to grab victory because he saved lives and ended the war.
Yeah, no
and
matter
the
what.
Democrats will be unhappy because he saved lives and ended the war.
You're right. That's so funny. It's so true, sadly. Doug, Clifton, Virginia, WMAL, excellent analysis. Thanks for the call, my brother. I appreciate it. And we're going to continue with calls in Florida and more when we return. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And I want to, again, thank everybody. I took a look at some of the comments and what are those called? Reviews for the podcast of this show, as well as for my personal podcast. This is America with Rich Valdez, which is in hiatus right now, but it's coming back real soon. And just the nicest things, so many 5-star reviews, and I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to do that. I know that the podcast is what a lot of people who listen to the show live use in order to say, oh my gosh, I had this great interview, and they liked something from it, from one of our guests, and they use that link to the podcast to send to somebody, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But I know they send it to members of their family or friends and whatnot because people tell me. So thank you. Thank you for sharing the show and for being so supportive of what we're doing every night. And I want to remind you, all of that's available for free at richvaldez.com, richvaldez.com. You could subscribe if you want to, but you can always access the latest show absolutely free, and there's no cost to that. So let's go back to the phones, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Naples, Florida, streaming the show from WGCU. Tommy, go right ahead, sir.
Rich, I just can't thank you enough. I listen to your show as often as I can. You do such a great job. Compliments to your staff and everybody around you. I just want to make a comment on our president, Donald J. Trump. What a different president he is from the first term to this one. And just a peace lover. He wants to end all the conflicts. He's doing such a great job. I'm so proud of this president because he cares so much about this country, our republic.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. It really shows when you look at second-term presidents who don't have a re-election ahead of them. They are oftentimes focused on legacy, and I would say Trump is a little bit focused on that, but it's more like the legacy is that of the country, right? Because there's things he could do that I think are more self-aggrandizing, self-serving, but yet he opts to really peace in the Middle East, peace in Europe, peace in the globe, which I think is fantastic. Not to mention, we're doing pretty good with tariffs. I got a report on that coming up when we return. Thank you for your call, Tommy, in Naples, Florida. WGCU. And amigos, we return with more after this. If your station doesn't carry the next hour, shame on them. Put some pressure on them. Don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to another hour of the program. We're live and national, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Monday night, live, national. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And in this hour, we're going to talk about a lot of things. Remember when President Cyril Ramaphosa was visiting the White House just a couple of weeks ago? And there was all this talk about kill the boy, kill the farmer, right? Remember that? That was wild stuff. Well, anyway, I told you I bumped into somebody who was the economic advisor to the king of the Matabele people, which is about 5 million people or so in South Africa. And he explained to me how interesting of a political conundrum that is and why it exists. Very interesting. So we're going to have a conversation with him in a little bit. But first, I want to remind you, today, big day, El Trompito making huge strides for peace, right? Really doing this for the sake of stopping the loss of life. And President Trump was in the White House today meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as several leaders from the European Union, I think about 7 of them. And they had a good conversation. And President Trump again said they're looking forward to having a trilateral meeting with Trump refereeing between Zelensky and Putin, Zelensky agreeing to meet with Putin, and things seem to be trending in the right direction. Listen to this, cut number 3.
President Zelensky, you say in a post on X today, Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
So Putin wants it ended. Zelensky wants it ended. El Trompito wants it ended. Most normal people want the war ended. And when President Trump says things like, we need to stop the loss of life, they've got to stop killing people, he says it so plainly. And it's amazing to me how the left will find ways to get at him, to somehow critique this. I guess it never ceases to amaze me. Usually I'm not really surprised at some of what the left does, but on certain universal truths like don't kill people. But I guess it serves me right? We've seen the senseless killing of people before, and that being defended by those on the left, whether it was the New York Times turning a blind eye to the Holocaust or many other things. I mean, you look at the October 7th massacre, and the only killing you hear is about the killing of the retaliation when the IDF fights back. So anyway, I wanted to, again, get back into that topic. We're going to keep talking about this with you guys. If you want to call in on this or on the situation in South Africa, as well as what's going on with crypto, plus big day for the markets and whatnot. Things are still looking good with tariffs. We'll have a report on that in a little bit as well. But straight ahead, Mupumi joins us. Mupumi Melchizedek, economic advisor to the King of Matabele. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Occupy land will require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. Yes. South African occupy land. That's who we are. Honorable member, can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament? Honorable. Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. Yamasa. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. To kill. Yamasa. Kill the poor, the farmer.
Welcome back, America. So you remember that scene in the White House. President Trump is there, and he's hosting President Ramaphosa from South Africa, our arch nemesis, because they're involved in the BRICS consortium. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they get into this talk about kill the Boers, this chant about killing white farmers. President Ramaphosa seems like he doesn't know what's going on. Trump pulls out the video. You've seen it. And I recently had the good pleasure of speaking with somebody who's a resident of South Africa, and I said, what's going on with that? And he was explaining it to me, and I said, you know what? I want you to come in and explain this to me. Turns out this gentleman is the economic advisor to one of the kings of the kingdoms in South Africa, and he's with us now. Mpuzi Melchizedek, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Richard, for having me.
My pleasure. So I want to get into this because, we had a pretty interesting talk about it. And I said, this is something I think that our audience should really have the benefit of hearing. Let's talk a little bit about you, your background, where you're from, so that people know who you are. And then we can get into the politics of that particular situation and a couple of others.
Okay. All right. My name is Mpumelelo Ndiweni. I'm the chief executive of the Coleman Group. We are an Africa-facing financial services company that raises capital globally and deploys it into Africa. I serve under His Royal Highness, King Bulelani Lobengula Khumalo, who is the King of the Matabele. The Matabele are found in Zimbabwe into South Africa. So we are the people that actually left KZN to establish kingdoms further from what is traditionally known as KwaZulu-Natal.
Now, Mpumi, tell us a little bit about the roots of that, because I think, you say that so eloquently, but we don't know what that is. But I think most people, you say Shaka Zulu, people know about Shaka Zulu. So tell us about how the Matabele came from Shaka Zulu.
So essentially, what happened was we had King Mzilikazi. So Shaka Zulu was the king of the Zulu. So he had gathered all the tribes in that's the west of South Africa under KwaZulu-Natal. So he had his right-hand general, King Mzilikazi. Mzilikazi was used for some military escapades that Shaka would actually do. So Mzilikazi was the general who was sent to conquer, bring cattle. After a while, Mzilikazi thought, no, man, I can't continue to do this. I can't continue to go and conquer lands, bring back the spoils to the king. Why don't I set up my own kingdom? So this is how the Matabele are then established. When King Mzilikazi then leaves KwaZulu-Natal, it moves into the interior of South Africa. So he sets up in the Highveld in South Africa, and about 1826, the Boers then moving inland from...
And those, of course, are the Dutch settlers.
The Dutch settlers.
Coming in.
They move inland towards where King Mzilikazi had established himself. So naturally, territorial battles come through until they finally push King Mzilikazi out of the Highveld, about 1836. King Mzilikazi moves further north into what is present-day Zimbabwe and establishes himself his Matabeleland kingdom. From 1838, he exists there until colonization by the British in 1893. When the British then colonize the Matabele, his kin is then exiled out of Zimbabwe, and they're taken back to South Africa, where they again grow up in the Cape until the present day, where the present king, who is the leader of the Matabele, was born in South Africa, while his people are in Zimbabwe and South Africa.
Okay. So you know your history. Now we know it too. Yeah. I want to get into this, the Boers, right? Because, I think my first question to you was, what's the story with that? Yeah. And you gave me a really good,
answer. I think the answer, for the folks that are home, it was equal parts politics and strategy and some of the background. So help everybody understand how this whole thing came about.
Okay. So essentially, the kill the Boer issue as it rolled out, everyone was shocked. I would say the larger population in South Africa was shocked. When there was discussion of a white genocide, everyone was, we were all shocked to see. So everyone was keen to see what evidence was going to be presented, literally, to say there is a white genocide in South Africa. Acknowledged and there, crime exists in South Africa, largely due to the high unemployment that's currently obtaining in the economy. So it affects right across the board, both black and white. More so, or rather, unfortunately, most of the farmers are white. So because crime is obviously hitting those that
have means.
So naturally, within the farming districts, it becomes the white farmers that are attacked. So not specifically because it is targeted at white farmers.
They just happen to have the money.
They just happen to have the money, number one. They happen to also be the ones that are actually on the farms. But it is right across the board. Black, white, all colors actually being attacked. So it's not only just to say there's that section. So...
the reason, and it's not to downplay it to say that that's not happening. My interest in it is because of the political motivation behind it. And you explained that there are dueling factions here. You have the extreme left and the extreme right in your politics that were kind of at war with one another. Tell us more.
Okay, so essentially what's going on is obviously, as you're putting it, that there is the extreme left and the right that are actually currently backing over the South Africa political space. All right, so we've got what is called, obviously, the radical economic transformation that seeks to redress the economic imbalances that have actually obtained. And then you've also got the other angle that wants to maintain the status quo, where probably the majority of the economy is still within the elite and the few individuals. So these are the forces that are currently at play that actually have actuated this. That literally the grouping that actually is pushing for redress to say
pro-business and communist.
Pro-business, so that's the difference. So you've got one grouping that says let's address the issue of the economy. Let's share the pie. Let's spread it out wide.
Free market.
That's free market. And it exists both sides. The difference obviously is in this particular issue, you've had extremes of that. All right, you've got those that literally want to say no, we need to take it away from communists, those that have. And then on the other side, also there are those that are actually saying, no, we need to maintain the status quo. Actually, if push comes to shove, we need our own colony, our own place that literally is going to be separated from South Africa. For us to exist. A secessionist. So there's a secessionist movement that's there. And then also there's a movement that obviously wants to nationalize and take over everything. So those are the two forces that are actually in play. So it depends now on whose ear,
right?
They actually get to first. So in this particular instance with the Kill the Boer, this was actually being sung, obviously during the struggle days in South Africa. In independent South Africa, this is no longer, applicable. Literally, because back in the day, if you look at the history of why that song was actually being sung, was because the farmers at the time were part of the apartheid system. So they were, commanders of the military as well during that period. So when that was being sung, it was actually a struggle song. So post-independence, in a democratic South Africa.
Now it's history.
It's history. That doesn't hold anymore. There's no need to sing it now, literally to say that. So which is why the extreme left is actually taking advantage of that to literally try and push its agenda using that, because that tends to obviously, rope up the emotions and so forth and so on. Now, that has played into the hands of the extreme right that wants to actually succeed out of South Africa and say, listen, we're in trouble here. Can you come and help us?
See?
That's the thing, can you see?
Right.
So which is why Ramaphosa, who belongs in the ANC, brings an ANC delegation to the White House. Once he gets to the White House, he's actually shown a video of the EFF, an opposition political party, of not what they, as the ANC, the current government, is actually doing.
Right. This would be the equivalent of bringing President Trump somewhere and showing a video of AOC.
That's the thing.
Saying, look at your people.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Oh,
Those
yes.
aren't my people.
No, that's the thing. So, which is why everyone was actually waiting to actually see you. I mean, what evidence is this?
Yeah.
Because when we speak of white genocide, where is it happening? We want to see that. I mean, the crime is happening everywhere. But this is just sheer opportunism from those that literally want to succeed out of South Africa, that want to set up their own within South Africa. Crime is across the board, and that's where we need help.
These
for.
kill the Boer extremists tend to be rather radical, very communistic in their approach.
Oh yes. No, definitely. Their approach is obviously communist. I mean, they also subscribe to Marxism as well. I mean, that is obviously where they come from, and it's really, I mean, in my view, it's really more just semantics than anything else. Because in lifestyle they are capitalists as well.
Right.
So while
the Chinese.
Exactly. So while they speak communism, but in lifestyle it's capitalism, really. I mean, and you see it in their lifestyles. You see it also, I mean, in some of their policies. And which is why I've said literally, I mean, in my view, communism in Africa has not produced, has not lifted the majority of the people.
Let me ask you a question. Has it produced it anywhere else?
I don't know. I'm focused on Africa.
Right. Communism doesn't work.
Yeah. So literally, I mean, I'm here to see a country where the masses have been lifted out of poverty.
Right.
Because poverty is the problem. And with poverty existing, this becomes weaponized. And normally by dictators, by extremists, as what's happening now in Mozambique with ISIS. I mean, that's weaponization of poverty, and this becomes the playbook that
over and over.
Once the people are poor, they are easy to manipulate. And keeping them there then obviously makes those guys continue, I mean, in whatever it is that they're doing. So in my view, what Africa needs is obviously to lift the majority out of poverty. And how do you lift the majority out of poverty? Socially responsible capitalism. Let the best minds lead. Let the merit lead. And whoever is best then can pull up the people as they lead. Other than having to literally go on nationalization, I mean, it hasn't worked. It doesn't work.
I think you're onto something here, because this is the only thing that's ever worked of lifting people out of poverty is the free market. People being able to do what they do to earn money and lift others. And I want to talk about that from a few perspectives. One, you and I had some reflection on crypto and how that's going to work in the United States and more so globally, as well as an infrastructure-backed token that I want to talk about that you know all about. So we're going to do that straight ahead. Amigos, we're coming right back with Mupumi Melchizedek.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, keeping you company all night long. You know the number, 833-4-VALDEZ, if you want to get in on the conversation. And we're taking your calls in a little bit. But right now, I want to continue our conversation with Mupumi Melchizedek. He is economic advisor to the King of the Matabele tribe in South Africa. And he's also the founder of an economic company that has an infrastructure-backed token that fits perfectly into our conversation on cryptocurrency and how it's growing globally. And part of how we started this conversation, you and I, Mupumi, was with regard to your thoughts on how President Trump is handling the introduction of cryptocurrency in the United States. Your thoughts?
I think I think President Trump has been the most progressive president in the U.S. In the crypto space. Within a short period of time, you've had 3 acts that were actually passed. You had what was called the Crypto Week. Immediately after that, you had Project Crypto. I mean, he's actually made crypto center in the economy, and which is actually pretty critical at this time, because the global economy is changing from what it was. I mean, if you actually study, because I'm in the space, if you study the evolution of money, from the time we actually had gold coming to the fiat, so you'd find that every time the world goes through 2 major wars and some pandemics, there's a change of currency. I mean, from gold, right from the Spanish to the British to the US dollar, every time that happens. So we are actually at a period in history where this shift is happening. And it was actually very opportune for Trump to actually say the US is to play center in the space, because the transition is happening where literally the world is moving to digital assets, the world is moving to these crypto assets. So and the ecosystem literally is literally bursting at its seams, waiting for clarity. I mean, the world over, as you say, we are in the space. We've noted, obviously, Dubai has actually made some significant progress on that. We also have got Singapore, Luxembourg as well, but none of them have taken its center the way that Trump has done. Where literally we are now saying stable coins are now recognized as a currency that can be used. Clarity Act, the Genius Act, where literally we are now separating, is this a security? Is this just a token? What is this? So we and for the first time, he is the first in the whole world to release a project crypto report, which the entire world has not released. So I think in this space, this is actually going to put the US right at the front edge of this evolution that's going on in the currency space.
In my view, I think everything you said is true, and I would say I think the United States has planted the flag. Yeah. They have President Trump has made the United States the crypto capital of the world. It's now up to everybody else to try and take it, and we have the lead. And I think this is important for many reasons, political reasons. Many optics, but also the financial aspect of it. You are able to bring in a lot more investment when you are the hub. New York City rent is what New York City rent is because it's New York City and this is the financial capital. And once you lose that, and New York City does stand to lose it, a separate topic with a communist candidate named Mamdani, who hails from Uganda. He's running for mayor, and his policies will likely throw people out of here. Right? I think a lot of the financial companies here are going to take off. But outside of that, it's because people want to do business where the money's being made. And I think we've done that. So building on that, and you're in the building business with your infrastructure-backed token, tell us about how that token works and your plans for its future.
Okay. So essentially what you have is, I'll probably just separate the two. You've got crypto, which is speculative, which is Bitcoin, your Ethereums, and so forth and so on. That's really not backed by any fundamentals. I mean, that's literally more or less just an idea that exists there. And then you've got what is called real-world asset-backed tokens, RWAs, which is what our token is, the Coleman Group coin. So what RWAs are is it's a token that's backed by a real infrastructure asset. It could be gold, it could be real estate. In our case, we are backing our token using Africa infrastructure. So I'll give you a case in point. Let's say a port. So literally, if a port is worth $100 million, we are tokenizing that under the Coleman Group coin and then availing those coins to institutional investors. So what are we doing? We are reducing the friction in the market. There's a lot of friction presently. If you want to invest, let's say in Kenya from New York, you have to go through so many channels to actually get to the point where you can actually buy shares or whatever it is that you're investing in. But with this platform that we have created, the Coleman Group coin and other RWAs, it allows you, while seated in New York, to be able to access those assets real time at any moment without even having to go there. And if you want to exit any position again, this is all digital. You can do it instantly away from that without actually having to have the 48-hour period of money transfers, etc., etc. So what crypto is doing, it's really, it's really taking out a lot of friction that's currently there in the financial system. It's also giving access to investors to a bigger pool of assets that they can actually invest in. Now, you speak about New York, why this will actually be very good for New York, because New York is the biggest financial center in the world, with its financial markets quite deep. Now, if you then avail these digital assets, where we can tokenize the funds that are currently there, we can tokenize the real estate, you literally are increasing the pool of investors that can participate globally in New York and also out of New York. So which is why it's important that for New York especially, that America pushes forward with the digital asset space, because if it doesn't, then all the other financial hubs shall gain traction in that. And by the time they want to actually catch on, as you know, the first out of the docks is always the one. So, but the beauty is, now that Trump has done this, I've seen a lot of movements in BlackRock, Circle, Ripple. There's quite a number of players now, JP Morgan, who are literally moving into the space also aggressively to take advantage.
And they once opposed this space.
Oh, yes.
Vehemently.
Oh, yes. Previously, obviously they were, everything new. When something is new, people first of all want to.
Well, I think it was new and it was a threat.
It was,
because if you have deregulated finance, and I can lend my own crypto out and take a loan against my own crypto and make my own interest, why do I need JP Morgan?
That's the thing. But also you must also understand also from their perspective as well. Remember, they have got the number one responsibility to safeguard shareholder investments. When crypto came through, it was highly speculative.
And volatile.
Very volatile. So how do you write an investment report to justify why you're putting money in something that today is $100, tomorrow is 10 cents?
Yeah.
How do you justify that? So they were correct, obviously, to play safe. But now that we've got these other asset classes that are coming through, which literally are backed,
and it's a different time. Bitcoin has a track record now that it didn't have before.
And literally everyone can see literally where everything is going. We were speaking about this, to say back in the day, the US dollar was pegged against gold. Then that was unpegged off gold. So obviously the world has been searching for something to base any currency. And this is the time and this is the space where something within the space literally is going to then be put in place to say this is what these currencies are based on. And it's good literally for you to be the first to have regulation.
Whether it's real gold or digital gold.
That's it. And it's actually digital gold.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming through,
Mupumi, I want you to let everybody know how they can learn more about your group and more about everything you're doing. How do they follow you? What's the website?
Okay. So our website is www.colmingroup.com. All right. And on the 22nd to the 23rd of October, we are hosting a summit here in Wall Street where we are bringing Africa infrastructure developers under the same roof with global investors to have a view over the Africa infrastructure. And the summit is called tokenizeafrica.org. So you can also log on to that. You can also find us on all social media pages, LinkedIn and Twitter. And my handle on Twitter is Mupumi Global. So you can also look that up. I actually post quite a lot of it. So that's how they can actually reach out. And we look forward to actually seeing them at the summit. Because just to give you what literally is happening, Africa has got a 170 billion infrastructure deficit annually in terms of developing its infrastructure. So compounded over that, we've called this the $2 trillion Africa infrastructure opportunity. Why? Because investors outside of Africa don't know where to start. Don't know where to start in the south, east, west. Where are the projects? So what we've done is we vet these projects, we audit them, then we onboard them onto the platform. Then we give them out to global investors to then participate in them, knowing very well that at least they've got people who are on the ground in Africa who have vetted the project, who have audited the project, and they're able also to exit easily out of the investment, because this is in a real world asset token, so it's fungible. You can trade it with other, and be able to buy other currencies as well.
Outstanding. Amigos, Mupumi Melchizedek. Check him out at Mupumi Global on Twitter. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company for a little bit longer. And again, insightful conversation with Mupumi Melchizedek. Check him out at Mupumi Global. Again, he is the advisor to the economic advisor to the king of the Matabele, Matabele. It's two different spellings there, but same tribe, which came from Shaka Zulu. They are a people in exile because they were exiled during the time of Robert Mugabe. Really interesting story. Anyway, we're going to continue with your thoughts, calls, opinions, and more as you guys weigh in. Let's see, where do we go? We're going to go to Arkansas. Joe in Salem, Arkansas, KSAR. Go right ahead, sir, quickly.
Rich, obliged for the call here. Listen, a few thoughts on the Washington, D.C. situation. Miss Perry there, she's absolutely 100% right. My studies show me that, the ones that are hollering posse comitatus, that doesn't apply. That's the military against the people of the 50 states. And this National Guard was originally intended to be state militia, and that's at common law, and they were federalized, I think, after Johnson. But the thing is, at common law, there's a necessity defense. When all the options are out and there's no other way to take care of the problem, well, then the president, which he did, can utilize the National Guard from the respective states. So that's the only thing I've got a problem with. I have not heard what happened to the people that lost their homes. As sorry as the homes were, I hope he done something good for them while cleaning up the rest of the place.
Yeah, good point. And my hope is that we can maintain this new status quo, and that we don't need this federalization forever. Joe, Salem, Arkansas, thanks for your thoughts. KSAR in the building. Let's go further west. Jim, Portland, Oregon, streaming the show tonight. RichValdez.com. Go right ahead.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm getting you on, used to be KGO. It's KSFO out of San Francisco. A little
wonderful.
DX
great station.
Comes in pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent.
I was thinking that Vladimir Putin is put himself in a very vulnerable position as far as like international law and stuff like that. What if President Xi said, Vlad, the way you feel about Ukraine, I feel about Siberia, and there's a lot more of us than there are of you. And it's just, all of a sudden he'd want to join NATO to protect Siberia. And it seems to me, if he gets land, that really justifies Ukraine joining NATO. I'm not sure NATO would be up to it, but maybe they would, but it's just some of this stuff is glaring. Just it's being overlooked that it's visible.
Yeah, well, no, you're not wrong. And I think the big part here is I don't think the question is, would NATO allow it? I think the question really is, would Putin? That seems to be one of his main points of negotiation. Is he refuses to have Ukraine, be a part of NATO? Why? Because he wants to continue doing this. So I don't know how it ends up, but very, very good point. And a funny one, too, at that. Jim in Portland, Oregon, thank you for your call, my brother. I appreciate you. And shout out to everybody listening and streaming. KSFO in the building. Coming right back, going to Springfield, Illinois, WTAX. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Let's go to Tim, Springfield, Illinois, WTAX. Go right ahead.
Yes, WTX stands for withholding tax because we're in Illinois. Anyway,
love that.
I didn't know if you saw the brilliant move like I did that Trump is doing here with the D.C. thing. Last week, he, with all these wars and treaties going on and all this stuff, he's like, how can you show strength if when world leaders come here, they see Washington, D.C., graffitied, homeless people. Now, when they came in this time, they saw some soldiers. They saw strength. And they're getting rid of, and he's openly, the world is watching him get rid of the bad. And they've got to go back to their countries, and the people are going to be going, hey, why don't you do something like that here?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you know what? I think not only are world leaders recognizing that, but I think you, me, the rest of we the people are noticing that. When you look at of the audio clips that we've been playing of reactions from people from Washington, D.C., where they're saying stuff like, we're so happy about what President Trump is doing, and people are happy to live in a safer neighborhood. I think that's the proof in the pudding. So it's not just the foreign people. I think it's the domestic people as well. But very good point, and thank you for your analysis on that. Tim in Springfield, Illinois, WTX, thank you, brother. And we continue. Joel, Las Cruces, New Mexico, KOBE. What's up, my brother?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to comment on what I saw on the interview today.
Yeah.
On the media. About,
which one? The media with Trump?
Yeah, when he said that the media is being dishonest, and they're not saying what is true about what he's doing on those cities that are full of crime, and how they are hiding the truth about the deep state.
Yeah.
Because they wanna. I love you when you talk about the deep state because you point out out things that other people don't see. And it's all caused by them. They throw the rock and they hide their hand.
Yep.
And nobody can investigate them because they have a lot of power.
Oh, you're right, Joel. Let me tell you, this is how they operate, right? The whole thing. I always used to tell my brother. I would tell him, listen, if you want to figure out these guys in the deep state, always think this way, and really the left in general. They want to do the most damage without getting their hands dirty. They always want to look like they have clean hands. So once you have that MO in mind, you'll always understand them. Joel, Las Cruces, New Mexico, KOBE. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.